Hi, my name is Michaela Stoner, and I'm a student patrol aide here at the University of Miami. Our group was lucky enough to get to go out in the field and actually learn what it's like to become an SPA and the training that we go through for it. So what an SPA is a student patrol aide who helps the University of Miami Police Department and the U.S. Security Association provide coverage on campus to make sure students are safe and healthy in everyday life around campus. So, the strategy of the SPA program is to get students involved in securing their own campus. It's a really great idea and a really great organization because it shows other students that it's not some third party that's like seeing over them. It's another student that they might have a connection to, and it makes it a bit more personal. To work here is really fun. I really enjoy it, but it is a little strict because it's like a government agency and you have to make sure that you're following all the different protocols through different paperwork or the different chain of command or all the different aspects that make a government job a little bit different than a private job, just because there's more requirements and more restrictions on what you can do. Okay, so we discovered a need for this training because the SPA program has kind of dipped in numbers this year, and I think the reason is that it's a really intensive training process. You need to have a lot of knowledge to be able to do what an SPA does, and a lot of knowledge of codes and how to work the radio and different parts on campus and what to do in each situation. So when I went through the training, I got a ton of information thrown at me all at once, and I thought that it would be really beneficial to have a system that could decrease the amount of information I was given per day, and so that I could retain more and do better at my job when it was actually my turn to go out and be alone as an SPA. Because what I found is that yes, I received all this training and was told all this stuff and was given all the knowledge I needed, but when I actually came to work on my own, I had forgotten what they said, or I had heard two different versions of what to do in that situation, and I just really didn't know what to do on my own quite yet. So we found a need for the training because we want to make sure that when an SPA goes out in the field all by themselves, they know what they need to do, they're prepared, and that they can follow all the different commands and know what they're doing on their own without any help. The main things as one of our HRD goals is to create conditions for continuous improvement. So as an SPA, you're never going to really get it right on the first try. You're going to need a few different tries to get everything sorted. And so what the program training needs to do is not only solve current problems, but also be able to see problems in the future, because as an SPA and you're just patrolling in the streets, you never know what's going to be the next thing that's going to come. So you have to make sure that you're prepared for things that's happened before, but also things that haven't happened. Another problem, especially in this organization, is that the difference between student and employee, that's huge, because you think a student has a little bit less authority and power, even in the same position as someone this is their full-time job. So that is another reason that we needed to assess training, because that can lead to some problems in HR about where students fall versus where employees fall and how they're treated differently, but also similarly, if that makes sense. To conduct our needs assessment, we looked at 3 different levels. We looked at strategic and organizational analysis, a task analysis, and a person analysis. In our strategic and organizational analysis, we answered the questions of what does our organization need for training and under what conditions will it be conducted. So the SPA needs training just to be able to do their job every day, because it's not something you can just throw a civilian into and they'll get it. So the need for training is to learn the QR codes, which is how we talk over the radio. Using this, there's a very specific language that you have to use. A need for training is what to do in every situation, and a need for training is how to work with supervisors and the police. The conditions that it will be conducted, we'd like to see it in some classroom and on the job, because we think that the classroom is going to help with some of those memorized things like the cue codes for the radio, but you need on-the-job training for this job to be able to do it on your own. They can't just send you straight from a classroom to the field and expect you to be able to do it right. So the goals of this organization is to keep campus safe. So that's really the main thing. We want to make sure that SPAs can do their job fully so that campus can remain safe. The resources we have are different student employees and the police, and the security team that helps train the SPAs. So those are full-time employees that work in the office and help the SPA program run smoothly. The organizational climate, like I said, is still pretty strict because it's a government organization and it's the police department. So they really have to be on top of their game and handle things in a really serious manner. But this particular office itself is very friendly. Everyone wants to know how everyone's doing. Everyone says good morning in the morning, and there's a really close-knit community. The constraints are that an SP is never going to be able to be a police officer. The training isn't there. So you have students who you're trying to use as security agents, but you can't really give them all the training they need to be like a full-fledged police officer. And they're students, they have class, they have other things that they have to worry about too. So sometimes that's going to have to come before being an SPA. The next analysis we did was a task analysis to determine the needs of the training program. We had to ask ourselves the questions: what is the task of an SPA, and what are the knowledge, skills, and other capabilities that they need to be able to do this training and to be able to do the job effectively? So the main things that an SPA needs is great communication skills, especially over the walkie and the radio system. They need to be able to do customer service skills within anyone who comes up and asks them a question, whether it's a student, another employee, a parent, someone who's at the university. And they need the knowledge to be able to know what to do in each situation, and the general physical ability to stand for long periods of time, sit for long periods of time, crouch, stoop. There's a lot of different things that they need physically as well. So there's a 5-step process in determining the task analysis. So we determine the overall purpose, like I said before. We identified the tasks. We identified the KSOCs. We identified areas that most could benefit from some human resource development, which would be making sure that you're not crammed with information all at once, because that can be really difficult to process and memorize. And we need to prioritize what needs to be the most beneficial from HRD, and then what can come next after we've really gotten that most important part. And the most important part is making sure the SPA feels comfortable going out in the field on their own and can know what to do when a situation occurs. We next ask ourselves, who is it that really needs to be trained? It's not just the student patrol aides, the student employees. Also the people conducting the training, the security office full-time staff, needs to be trained in how to train SPAs. It's actually quite a process. So what we need to go over is how SPAs are going to be, like how the performance appraisal is going to go, how the security manager's performance appraisal is going to go for how well they did in training it. And we may need to make sure that there's no gap between the skills of the SPAs and what's needed to do the job. To create a learning environment for the SPAs to retain information, we first need to make sure that we're onboarding SPAs that are trainable, that can take information and retain it and apply it on their own, because that's really important, because you need to have that base. Then we need to look at the content. Is it going to be smooth throughout? Is it going to be told the same thing from every person and not be told different things from one person and how to act in a situation and then hear something else from someone else? So we need to make sure that there's clear training and that it's relevant and they're not being told things that they're never going to use. Then we need to make sure that there's training transfer, which means that the elements they're practicing on are the exact same elements that are going to be used on the field. So when you practice with this radio, this is the radio you're going to be using in the field. We need to make sure that there's variability in how they learn things on the job or classroom, or actually I did some ride-alongs with different security officers, and that was really exciting because you're learning from someone new and you're actually just going through the motions with them without any of the responsibility yet. And they need support in the work environment, because that can be really difficult if you don't feel like anyone wants to see you learn this. It's just like you out there on your own. So that's really important. And the training design. We need to make sure that we're focusing on college-age learners, because that might be a bit different than the other security staff that's hired full-time. They might learn a little bit differently than us, so it has to be tailored to a student learner. And they have to make sure that there's good conditions for practice and that they have enough time to practice and aren't sent out too early before getting to practice on the radio and all the different situations. The main strategies we're going to use for learning is the self-management strategies. So we're going to determine the need of support and consequences you get in the work setting for those newly applied skills you just learned. So support is going to be someone's going to sit down with you one-on-one and work on the radio codes with you. And we have a test that if you do well and pass, obviously you get all right. But if you do wrong, you have to take the test again. So it's negative if you don't retain. Then there's going to be goals for using the learned capabilities. So like that's the test. Your goal is to be ready for the test. So you can have 100% on the test. Make sure you know all that information. Applying the actual learning capabilities to the job is, like I said, it's mostly using the radio, really. That's going to be you're going to do a run, like a run along with someone else, a ride along, and then every time they're covered on the walkie, you're going to tell them how they're supposed to respond before they actually make the response. So it's like you're using it in the real work environment, but without the consequences if you get it wrong. And you also we need to monitor the use of learned capabilities and make sure that everything they're learning is getting used and used properly, and that they self-reinforce it. That's going to be the self-management strategies that lead to better learning. So one of your assigned tasks might be to work at an event. An event is really important because it's not just you and students who you're making an impression on, but people who don't go to the University of Miami, people who don't at the University of Miami, and overall adults that have influence on what we do. So you want to make sure is that you're not engaging anyone at the event, that you're not being a nuisance, and then you're not constantly being seen. You want to watch from the background. So what you would pretty much do is just stand in the corner like this, continually watch the event, and only come if asked, or if you see someone overtly intoxicated, that's a danger to themselves or to others. They can be intoxicated, they just can't be a danger. So make sure you're in the background, you have your walkie on, but not too loud to disrupt the event, and you're ready for at any moment to be able to step in and call an officer. But remember, never engage, always use proper codes, and make sure that if there's anything serious going on, that you call an officer to come help you. 10-4. Now, we're giving Brian a chance to practice all the skills he might need to use during his time as an SPA. This whole time, we're going to watch him and give him feedback on how he performed and what he did right and right. So now, as part of our training program, Brian gets to actually go out in the field and do the jobs of an SPA for himself and see if he's doing well, and then we'll watch his performance and give him feedback on what he did right, what he did wrong, and how he can improve.
703 to dispatch.
QSK.
Have an officer 15 me at OG in regards to a 24.
QSL 1714.
I'm going to sit here and wait for someone to retrieve this lost property.
Brian, you can't be on your phone while you're on shift. You have to constantly be alert for this job.
Sorry.
Yeah, that next time that's going to be infraction that goes to your superior.
Okay.
Thank you. As part of our training program, Brian needs to know when he's done right and when he's done wrong. Being on your phone during your shift is a serious infraction that can get you written up and possibly terminated from the SPA program. So, our reaction was a little intense to Brian's misstep, but he needed immediate feedback on what he was doing wrong so that he doesn't do it in the future. That's definitely going to be part of our on-the-job training. When we're watching, we're going to make sure to provide feedback so he knows at each step of the way how he's doing.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to reach in my pocket.
Don't try anything.
Have an officer meet me at the library. This man is up.
QSL. Someone was coming in and trying to gain access to a closed library. Well, it might be counterintuitive, but if someone's holding a gun to you, you always do as they say, is what we're taught at SPA. But when the situation actually comes, people tend to react a bit differently than how they think they're going to act when it's just all in writing. So we tried to give Brian an experience by using one of our own officers and pretending as though someone had a gun and was trying to get into the library. and to make sure that he'd actually act in a way that he was taught in the classroom in the field. Because in these situations, when adrenaline gets pumping, sometimes your reaction isn't always what's best and isn't always what you were told to do when you were in the office training. But to ensure that he actually performs how he was supposed to, we're giving him real life situations to practice in. Okay, Brian, so right here I have the number codes and the cue codes that you're going to use when you're talking on the radio to the dispatch office. Take a few minutes to look this over, ask me if any questions, and for the next couple of days, keep studying, but I'm going to quiz you along the way.
All right.
Here's an example of some of Brian's classroom training where he actually gets to go over the cue codes and make sure that he knows them well enough that he can use them in the field. This is a really important step in the training process. Okay, is that enough time?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little quiz. So tell me what you would call for a hit and run.
18.
What about a sex offense?
33.
And what about dead on arrival?
45. Give me a hard one.
Okay, let's see here. What would you call for a narcotics violator?
51.
Good job. Okay, so let's say you're having a transmission with dispatch. What would they say when you're good to proceed with that transmission?
QSK.
And what about when they acknowledge your transmission?
QSL.
Good job, Brian. You really got this down. You'll have a final test in about a week.
Sounds good. Sir, are you okay? Different for you, dispatch.
QSK?
Have an officer 15 me at the OG in regards to a 38.
QSL 1719. Brian is taught to never engage a suspected person or an inebriated person and to watch from a distance while he calls the police and wait for them to come. So Brian stays out of the sight of the 38 so that the police can come, but he's not engaging the dangerous person. Since Brian has been given a lot of time to practice codes with other officers and has been given a lot of time to do on-the-job experiences, like taking over a shift on his own, he's definitely going to transfer this knowledge to his time as an SPA. Program, we reached out to Brian and tried to get his feedback so that we can constantly be improving our program for more and more SPAs to come. He was very honest in giving us his thoughts on the program, and that's really beneficial to make sure that we make the necessary tweaks to the program and make it even better the next time we give it. So Brian, after going through this training program, what things did you like and what things do you think needed improvement?
Well, I think I really felt a high transfer of training due to the hands-on OJT, and I feel like the training was also very consistent in terms of the commands because of having a single trainer throughout the whole process. One thing I feel that could have been improved was there could have been more classroom-based training for memorizing cue codes and just to be able to accommodate more people in a more efficient manner.
In conclusion, we used evaluations from the trainer to see how the SPA did, the SPA to see how the trainer did, and then the overall security division to see how the SPA program is running after a little bit of time with the SPAs in the field to determine how successful our program was. If the SPAs didn't enjoy the program, then it wasn't successful. If the trainers didn't enjoy the program and don't think it worked, then it wasn't successful. And if the security division itself is having trouble with the SPAs on the job, then it wasn't successful and something needs to be changed. But if all three of those levels say that the training was good and give small improvements, then I think we've got a really good training program here. This was a project brought to you by Michaela Stoner, Alex, Brian, and CU. Thank you.